Hello, 8th graders. Today's joke of the day is, why did the bike fall over? Stay tuned to find out. Our learning target for today is I can identify a geometric sequence, find the common ratio, the zero term, and the next three terms. A geometric sequence is similar to an arithmetic sequence, but in this case, you multiply by the same number every time. Let's identify if the following sequence is either an arithmetic sequence, a geometric sequence, or neither. Okay, let's look at this first one. We have 2, 4, and 12. Well, 2 to 4, that's either adding 2 or multiplying by 2. So we could say this is plus 2 or times 2. And then from 4 to 12, well, that's either plus 8 or times 3. Okay, neither of those are the same, right? They're not multiplying by the same number or adding the same number. So this is going to be neither. Okay, let's look at this one here. Well, 3 to 6, if we're adding, that's plus 3. And then 6 to 9, that's plus 3. So this looks like it's arithmetic. Let's also see if it could be geometric. Well, 3 to 6, that's times 2. And 6 to 9, well, that's not really that's definitely not times 2. Okay, so we know that this is an arithmetic sequence. Okay, let's look at this one. Negative 2 to 8, well, that would be adding 10. 8 to negative 32, that would be, let's see, subtracting 40, I think. Okay, definitely not arithmetic. Okay, negative 2 to 8, that would be multiplying by a negative 4. And then 8 to negative 32 would also be multiplying by a negative 4. So this one is geometric. Okay, if you're unsure what you're multiplying by, you can always just take your, the term, like the second term divided by the first term. So we do 8 divided by negative 2. That gives us negative 4. We can check that. And then same thing with negative 32 divided by 8 equals negative 34, or negative 4. You would always want to check that with like the term that comes after divided by the term that comes before. Now that we're given that this is a geometric sequence, we want to identify the common ratio, the zero term, and the next three terms. Remember, the common ratio is that number that we multiply each time, okay? So we have 2 to 4, well, that's multiplying by 2, and then 4 to 8, again, multiplying by 2, so our common ratio is going to be 2. Now our zero term, okay, like in arithmetic sequences, we would just, subtract from whatever we had before, okay? Our zero term is still the one that comes before that first term, but now we're going to divide, okay? If we're multiplying by 2 each time, then we want to take 2 divided by 2, right, because this is our first term. Okay, divide that by the common ratio, okay, and that gives us 1. So we know that 1 is our zero term. Now the next three terms, we just multiply by 2 each time, so 8 times 2 is 16, 16 times 2 is 32, 32 times 2 is 64. And there we have that. Now this one, negative 2 to 6, well, let's see what my common ratio is there. Let's do 6 divided by negative 2. That gives me negative 3. Okay, so we're multiplying by negative 3. Are we doing the same thing there? 6 times negative 3. Yep, that gives me negative 18. So there we go. Our common ratio is going to be negative 3. Now, to find our zero term, we want to take that first term divided by our common ratio. So we have negative 2 divided by negative 3. Okay, well, we can't really simplify that fraction, but we can chop because we have negative divided by a negative. So we know our zero term is going to be 2/3. The next three terms, well, I'm going to need my calculator for this one. I'll do negative 18 times negative 3 gives me 54.
I was going to go get my...
Multiply by another negative 3, that gives you negative 162. And another negative 3 gives you 486. Okay, let's look at a couple more. Given these sequences, identify the common ratio, the zero term, and the next three terms. All right, well, to get from 24 to 12, let's see what we do. We do 12 divided by 24. Okay, that can simplify to 1/2, right? Because 12 goes into 24 and into 12, so we just divide the numerator and the denominator by 12. Okay, and then to get from 12 to 6, again, you multiply by 1/2 or divide by 2, so our common ratio is going to be 1/2. Now our zero term, we do the opposite. So if we're dividing by 2 each time, right? We're dividing by 2 each time, or multiplying by 1/2. Now we're going to multiply 24 times 2, which gives us 48. That will be our zero term. I got that by 24 times 2. Okay. Now the next three terms, we start with 6. So we do 6 divided by 2. That's going to equal 3. I'm going to erase that now that we have that part. Okay, we have 3, and then divide that by 2. Well, that's 3/2. Now this one gets a little tricky. So we have 3/2 divided by 2, or times 1/2. Well, we can multiply across, so the numerators multiply to 3, the denominators multiply to 4. So then our final term is 3/4. Okay, for this one, it looks like 32 to 16. Well, we can do 16 divided by 32. That will also simplify to 1/2. So our common ratio again here is going to be 1/2. Our zero term, 32 times 2, or divided by 1/2. Yep, that equals 64. So that'll be our zero term. Our next three terms, well, we have 8 divided by 2, that's 4. 4 divided by 2 is 2. And 2 divided by 2 is 1. Just a couple more examples that we want to look at here. All right, the common ratio for this sequence, we have 25 divided by 5. That gives us 5. Okay, we can double check that. 125 divided by 5, that would give us 25, or 25 times 5 gives us 125. So there we go. We end up with our common ratio of 5. Now, if my common ratio is 5 and my first term is 5, to find my zero term, I want to do 5 divided by 5. That equals 1. Okay, so my zero term is going to be 1. Now my next three terms, you should use a calculator for this one. Okay, 125 times 5 gives me 625. That times 5, 3,125. And then that times 5 gives me 15,625. All right, let's look at this final example. Okay, we have -3 to 3. Well, I can just look at that and know that I'm multiplying by -1 here. 3 to -3, again, multiplying by -1. So my common ratio is going to be -1. Now my zero term, let's see if we do -3 divided by -1. That gives me just a +3. So that will be my zero term. My next three terms, we'll do -3 times -1, which will be 3, times another -1 gives me -3, times another -1 gives me 3. Today, for our joke of the day, to tell you the answer, we have a very special guest. Okay, so why did the bike fall over?
Because it was too tired.
Thanks for watching and have a great day.